Greetings, awesomes. How's everyone doing today? Hope you're having a great weekend or week, depending on when you watch this. This is the great Googlepedia video that I was trying to get out last week, but this that just did not get done, so I apologize. So we're going to talk about a little bit about Googlepedia. So we'll go over some of the basic things of using Wikipedia and Google, kind of in the form of rules, not in the form that these are so stringent, but things to kind of be thinking of and kind of rules to live by, if you will. And I think the number one thing you're really thinking about Wikipedia and Google is to think of them as resources, not necessarily as a source itself. So Wikipedia, for example, kind of as rule number two implies we wouldn't quote directly from Wikipedia, but rather we would look up something on Wikipedia and then go down where the references are, find out where their sources are. So a lot of times when looking at Wikipedia, at the end of hopefully most of the sentences, or maybe a paragraph or whatever, or maybe even a section, there'll be a little superscript number hopefully over the last letter or right after the last letter of a sentence. You'll see a little number 1 through, and then they'll be sequentially numbered. And so if you kind of put your arrow or your mouse or whatever over that number, it'll show you where it is. And I think if you click on it, it'll take you down to the bottom, or just go down to the bottom and find it. And hopefully there's a link, or at least should be some sort of entry for that, and go back to that source, right? So we kind of want to keep going back till we actually find the source. Oftentimes in Wikipedia, as the Googlepedia article tells us, that there have been times where something's gone up on Wikipedia, it's been copy and pasted and picked up by journalists, or picked up by the news media, or picked up in these different types of ways, and then it gets circulated as truth, and not necessarily truth in the sense that it's false, but in the sense that maybe it might not be super accurate. It might not be, as we would call it, it's not credible, it's not reliable. We think about the crap test that we're going to go over in another video. It doesn't meet the requirements. And even as we look at the read the Googlepedia piece, it talks about the crap test. We're looking for currency. We're looking for relevance, right? We're looking for accuracy. We're checking the author, right? We're looking at the author's purpose, making sure all those things are gelling. We're also looking at the source itself. What was the level of the review process that went through? And so it's one, a lot of times we have the difference between popular sources and scholarly sources. Popular sources are things that come out that journalists put out really, really, really quickly, like the Wall Street Journal or Newsweek or the New York Times or the Atlantic, or some of these. They're all about speed, right? So new information comes out about something, especially about COVID. It just kind of gets checked for as much accuracy as they possibly can, and then it gets sent out because everyone wants to be first, right? You heard it here first. It's news. Whereas a scholarly article, it's got to go through a more rigorous peer review process. And so that's why we don't use Wikipedia, because while they do check it, nobody checks it before it gets posted, right? And even after it's posted, and even just because there is a source for it, we still need to check that source to verify, to make sure that even that source is reliable, because not every single one of theirs is going to be reliable sources, and thus that's why we use the crap test. So Google, obviously, I think Google's a little bit more, just because it comes up in one of the top 2 or 3, results, in your search, doesn't necessarily mean that it's accurate. So we need kind of the general rules: always try to go back and find the true source of that idea or that quote, or whatever it is, concept that you're wanting to use for your research. Oops, I went up too fast there. My bad. Let's go back. If not a scholarly peer-reviewed source, use the crap test. All right. And that's in, also, we've got the crap test handout, of course, on our page. And then we've also got it listed in the that article. If you're using Google Scholar, don't assume just because it's Google Scholar, that doesn't mean it's scholarly. If it's make sure it's published in a scholarly journal. Things we can kind of do, some things that kind of give it away, is there a volume and or an issue number. A lot of times that's very, very helpful. And then rule number 2 with Google Scholar, if we want to make sure that our sources are relevant and they have that currency, as you're looking at the crap test, you can kind of reduce your search and kind of get those searches where the ones that you're really looking for come at the top by using the options on the left. All right, about to run out of time, so I'll be back with you here in just 1 second. Bye, guys.